So, all right, let's get started with what we're going to talk about in this class. And I'm going to share the screen with you. Okay, does everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, it's a welcome, of course, to our magazine writing class, and some of the topics we're going to talk about, they include how to select the proper magazines for your submission. My mouth's not working too well today. How to format your submission, how to look like a pro until you become one, how to make the editor your friend, how to find out everything you need to know about the publication through guidelines, sample copies, etc., about the areas that are open to freelancers, the type of articles open to freelancers, so similar like things like features, recipes, reviews, travel articles, advice columns, letters to the editor, humor columns, advertorials, poems, puzzles, calendars, fashion layouts. And that area has opened up a lot recently because I'm sure, as you're aware, number one, a lot of magazines have gone online now. So there are less print publications than there were before, but a lot of them have transitioned to pure online publications, which means that they need content, but in a lot of cases, they need content more frequently because they're finding that not going to put their magazine up and keep it up for a month or two. They're going to want to change it all the time. So there's more positions open up for online magazines than there were in the past. Yes, traditional magazines have kind of been eliminated in some areas, but a lot of us are hanging in there. San Diego Woman is still doing online and print, and I kind of like it that way. Yeah, the printing is tough because of the money involved with printing, but to me, a magazine is something you can hold in your hand, and I think a lot of people feel that way. Um, the younger people kind of like to do everything online, but those of us who've been around a little bit, we kind of like being able to grab a magazine and take it to the beach or do something with it that you wouldn't want to lug your computer around for. Okay, then we're going to talk about getting clips, right, which is what you're going to need if you're going to get jobs, get magazine writing jobs, is that they want to see that you've been published. I mean, it's the old story. You can't get experience without having experience. So it becomes kind of a problem when it comes to writing, because if you haven't been published, how do you get published? So that's part of the reason I started doing the classes, is that with the magazine industry, we can put people in who we don't necessarily have a lot of experience if we like the articles. And going into a regional magazine like ours is easier than getting into a national magazine. So a lot of my students have been writers for me, and that's given them some published clips, which helps them with getting other writing jobs. Okay, so that's what clips are. And the difference between clips and samples of your work is that a clip is something that has been already published. Okay, so if somebody asks you for clips, it means it has to be published work. Syndication, a lot of people want to think about writing a column, and then the column can get syndicated in a bunch of different magazines. Sadly, there's not as much money in that as you would think. I remember years ago going to a writers conference and my whole idea was I wanted to be syndicated. And we looked at people like Irma Bombeck, because I like to write comedy. So we looked at people like Irma Bombeck and found out that they were in like maybe 100 different newspapers or magazines out there, but they were only making like $2 to $3 a magazine. So it wasn't as lucrative as I thought it was, unless you're a really big name. Towards the end of her career, she of course was making more money, but to start out, it's not necessarily as lucrative as you would think. We're going to talk about self-promotion of your writing, because the way things are now in the industry, if we don't promote ourselves, nobody else does. So we have to learn how to not feel bad about promoting ourselves. And there's ways that you can do it to be subtle without being in everybody's face. But you got to let everybody know that you're a writer, because if you don't let them know that you're a writer, your chances of getting jobs are that much less. And we're our best advocate for ourselves. So don't be afraid to tell people when you meet them in a conversation, even if it's a stranger, what do you do for a living? I'm a writer. I'm a freelance writer, because that may interest someone that you're talking to. May get a job out of doing that. Publishing books and utilizing magazines to promote them is one way that people like to submit articles to us. For instance, Lisa's father wrote a couple of books, and I've said to him, give me a chapter, give me an article from this, and a small enough piece of writing that it could be an article, and we'll put it in the magazine. And by doing that, It gets people interested in your writing, interested in your topic, and also at the very end of the article, you say, if you want to read more, pick up my book. So it's an advertisement where you're giving people something without, you know, and at the same time selling your book. So it's not in your face kind of advertising, but when people read your article, they may want to turn around and buy the book. Okay, use of social media. You know, I have to admit, I was not great at this. And one of the reasons that I wasn't was I just had too many other things to do and I couldn't concentrate on it. But my daughter, who is our managing editor, she does my social media for me, and she's up on Instagram and TikTok. And God, if you go online and look at some of the TikToks she made me do, I want to cringe, but you know, they're out there. So you can look at us on TikTok, and we have some magazine TikToks, and we also have a good Instagram following now. And it's all important because number one, it's free advertising for you. So anytime you want to promote yourself, people know what you're doing. If you can do it through social media, it's not costing you anything to do it except your time and maybe a little embarrassment. You know, I got a little embarrassed doing some of them, but other than that, it doesn't really cost you that much. And then we're going to talk about whether you need a website. Okay, so these are basically, this is pretty much the syllabus of what we'll be doing in the next 4 weeks. As you can see, it means we got to get a lot into each class. So hopefully we can do that. I like to start off with another piece of writing. Let me get you up the next one. Okay. Now this is something that I like to share with my students who are first starting out with magazine writing, because basically there are things in here that you need to know to sound like you know what you're talking about. So if someone were to contact you about writing an article for them and they're starting to use magazine or newspaper lingo, you'll be lost. So I put this up there because there's some things that every writer should know. And the first thing on the list is, what is a masthead? So rather than me trying to explain it to you, let me show you what a masthead is. Give me 1 second. And now it's not going to allow me to do that, so I'll have to show you what a regular magazine. Okay. All right. A lot of people, let me get rid of this. Okay. A lot of people think that a masthead is this part of the magazine, the top with the heading. But in reality, what the masthead of a magazine is a few pages into the magazine, and it's this. Okay, let me see. I'm going to try one more time to see if I can get you to see things better. 1 second, see what I can do here. See if this works. Okay, here we go. It's going to make it easier for you. All right, so here's an issue of our latest issue of the magazine. And so you see the cover, okay, and you see the header on it. And you go in a few pages until you come to this page, okay? So the masthead generally gives you the mission statement of the publication. It tells you the people that are involved in putting the publication out, gives you information on how to reach us, our links, subscription information, photos of people that are in the issue. So this is what the masthead is. Okay, now if you were to get a magazine writing job and you wrote consistently for a certain magazine, or sometimes magazines will do it even on 1 or 2 issues, if you get into 1 or 2, is they'll put your name here. Okay, and that's a clip that you want to have because it shows that you're one of the writers on a publication. So that's an important thing to know where the masthead is. So if someone says we're going to put you on the masthead, you're like, okay, that's a good thing. Okay, so we'll go back to this now. Okay, so that's the first thing. Okay, what are writers' guidelines? Every magazine out there has a listing of how they want their writers to submit work. And the guidelines are very specific. So some may say they want it via email, some may say they want it by mail, and they'll also give you the types of materials that they're interested in seeing. Okay, so it'll be a listing of what they want to receive from you. Okay, so by paying attention to the guidelines, you learn a lot of information about the magazine. you'll learn things like how long does it take them to decide if they want to put my article in the issue. And that's important because you don't want to sit around months and months and not know when they're going to make a decision. So in the guidelines, there will be a part of it that says responses to submissions 3 months, which is generally the norm. It's about a 3-month wait. Okay, so how soon after I send a submission should I contact the editor? Basically what happens is you got to give them that 3 months if that's what their guideline says. So don't start bugging them a week after you send it to them because it's not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to get you to be an annoyance to them, and you probably won't get your article published. So if it's a 3-month wait, we always suggest that you give them maybe 3 months plus another 2 weeks. And if you haven't heard back from them when you've submitted an article, it's fine to send a follow-up and say, have you had a chance to look at it? Are you interested? Because this way they know that you're on top of things, that you're professional because you're checking in with them, and you're there to provide them your services. And a lot of times that simple phone call or email may come at the perfect time when they're missing something and they need to put something in the article, and you may just get lucky and they'll go, oh, when did you send it in? They'll look at the article and then they'll use it if they have spacing for it. Okay, number 4 is what is premier placement? Now, premier placement in a magazine is generally the front cover, the back cover, the inside front cover, the inside back cover, and the middle of the magazine. Okay, so generally the middle of the magazine is where the feature is, which is what's on the cover. So it's the cover story. So if you get asked to write a cover story, you're going to have premier placement in that magazine, which is worth a lot when you're promoting yourself. You know, if you're the feature writer and you've written the lead story, that helps elevate your position as far as your career goes. Okay, so when they say, oh, we have an article, your article is great, we want to give you premier placement, you know what they're talking about. Okay, how long is the usual wait from the time your article is submitted until it's published? Okay, that's generally 6 months for most major magazines. So if you're thinking about writing an article about Christmas, it needs to be submitted in July. Okay, so you need to consider that 6-month wait. Okay, before I move forward, any questions on any of that so far? No, everyone okay? All right. There's 2 ways that you can be paid. Oh, yes, go ahead, Sean. I can't hear you, you're muted.
Kids outside got noisy.
Okay.
The writer's guidelines, how do you find those?
Okay, good question. I
For
skipped
a
over
magazine.
that. So thank you for reminding me. Okay, generally on every magazine website, there is going to be a section that says Write for Me or Careers, and it's usually at the very, very bottom of the page of the magazine site, and it's in grayed out lettering and very tiny, okay? But that's usually where it is.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you when a lot of you have taken my classes before, I've always recommended writersmarket.com, but sadly it's gone. Okay, they no longer have that. They were bought out by another company and they decided not to use that website anymore. And that was a submission tracker. And what that means is it was a database and submission tracker. A database is a listing of all the magazines that exist. So say you write an article and you want to submit it and it's on something like Women's Health, all right? So now you're like, where do I submit it to? I used to be able to go onto their database and put in Women's Health, and it would come up with every magazine that was willing to accept articles on women's health. Unfortunately, they're not around anymore, but I did find an alternative to it, and I'm going to give you that in the handouts. We're going to go through that as one of the places where you can look. And they have not as many as Writers Market used to have, but they have probably around 750 different magazines that you could send your writing to. So that we'll go over that after we get done with this flyer. But yeah, you know, if it's not listed there, the only other way is to go down to the bottom of the page on the site and see if they have an area that says Write for Us or Writers or Careers, and you'll usually find it in that area. Okay. The 2 ways that you get paid from a publication that accepts one of your pieces of writing is by payment on publication or payment on acceptance. Okay, the one that most writers like better is payment on acceptance. And the reason for this is that means as soon as they make the decision that they want to run your article, they will send you a check. Okay, you'll get paid instantly. Payment on publication means that you have to wait for that issue that you're in to be published, which in the case we mentioned earlier, that's a 6-month waiting period. Okay, so most of us, when we sell an article, would like to see the money come right away. We don't want to wait 6 months. The other problem with payment on publication is that there is a very, very large turnaround in magazines. So the editor that decided they wanted your article might be gone within that 6 months. And now all of a sudden the new editor might not like it. So it might not get published. In the case that it doesn't get published, they're not obliged to pay you. And now you've had that piece of writing with them for 6 months, which meant that you couldn't use it anywhere else. So they kind of were holding that piece of writing hostage until their publication came out. So the next point, number 8, is what is a kill fee? And most publications that pay on publication will offer a kill fee. And that means that you'll get something for having had them hold your piece of writing for 6 months. And that's always an important thing to ask when someone says they pay on publication, is to say, do you have a kill fee? Because at least you know you're getting a partial payment for having your article locked up with them for 6 months and then them not printing it. Okay, so you want to make sure if it's payment on publication that they offer a kill fee. Okay, what is writing on spec? Sometimes you'll send in a piece of writing to a magazine, an idea. You know, a lot of times you won't send the whole article, but you might say, I'm interested in writing an article on, I don't know, Amazon, the growth of Amazon. Are you interested? And they may go, yeah, we're interested, but we want to see it on spec. Okay, and that means that they're not obligated to pay for it. They're not obligated to buy it. They're just wanting you to write it. Now, chances are if they ask you to write it on spec that they are going to take it, but you're not always guaranteed. So a lot of my students will say, well, should I write it? You know, if I'm not guaranteed that it's going to be published, should I take the time away from other jobs and it may be more certain to write it? And I always suggest that yes, you should. And the reason, a couple of different reasons why you should. Most of the time in my experience, if an editor asks you for an article on spec, they like it. They like what your idea is. They've seen a little bit of your writing because you approached them with a query letter or with a sample of it, so they know they like your writing or they wouldn't ask you to submit it on spec. And in the outside chance that they don't use it, it's made us do what writers tend to not do, and that's write an article we should be writing, because we tend to be terrible procrastinators. Okay, we have great ideas in our head, but getting it down on paper doesn't always happen. So writing on spec also gives you the ability to have that article now ready. If they don't want it, you start sending it out to other publications. So I don't really think there's anything wrong with writing on spec. Chances are they're going to buy it, and if they don't, now you have a finished piece of writing that you can submit elsewhere. So I say go ahead and do it. Number 10 is what is a clip, and we talked about that a little bit before. A clip is a published work, so it's not something that's just a sample of your writing. It actually has appeared somewhere, and it has to be in a published form for them to see it. Okay, what does payment in contributor copies mean? A lot of publications don't pay their writers, but they'll pay in copies of the publication so that you can get samples to use for your portfolio. In the beginning, it's a good idea to do that because you can get some high-end clips that you can use to get other high-paying jobs. Now, a lot of people are like, I'm not going to write for free. Why should I write for free? But think about it. Okay, most articles, especially if it's like a local or you know, regional publication, are probably going to pay, you know, anywhere between like $100 and $400 for an article, depending on the word count. That one piece of writing is great, but we all know how fast you can go through $200 or even $400, you know, in this day and age. But if you have that clip, that's something that'll get you even higher paying jobs and more jobs. So people should not necessarily not want to write for payment and contributor copies, because it's going to become part of your portfolio, which you can't pay for. You know, there's no way for you to get that unless you get published. So I say go ahead and write on spec, and also write with a magazine that, you know, pays in contributor copies, because these both subjects will probably give you some clips to add to your portfolio. Okay, any questions on any of those? Okay, now we're getting a little more into the magazine itself. What are magazine demographics? Now, the demographics on a magazine are who the magazine is read by, okay? And that will differ from magazine to magazine. So for instance, say you have a senior publication. Okay, the topics that you write about are going to be different than what you would write about for a teen magazine. So you need to know what the demographics of a magazine are if it's not obvious from the title, okay? You know, if it's teen love or something, you know it's going to be a teen magazine. But there are some very generic titles, and we don't know exactly what they are writing about unless we get the demographics for the magazine. And this information will be in the guidelines, generally is in the guidelines. But what I do suggest to anyone who's thinking about writing for a certain magazine is the first thing you should do is get a copy of that magazine. Scan through it, and they're mostly all available online now, so it's not even requiring you to go purchase anything. But take a look at their writing to see who their demographics are, to see who their articles are written towards, and also so that you have an idea what their voice is like. Okay, most magazines are conversational speaking. You know, they want the article to be read as if someone was talking to them. But some aren't. You know, you have more literary magazines that are not like that. So when you want to write for a magazine, the best way to do a good job and get your articles published is to know exactly what the voice of the magazine is. So the first thing I would suggest if you're interested in writing for any publication is to read some of what they have in the magazines. That'll help you get an idea. Okay. What is circulation? Circulation is where the magazine is sent to and how many people it's sent to. So for instance, San Diego Woman magazine, we print 20,000 copies. And the way it works is readership is figured on 3 people reading each issue. So we can say that our circulation is 60,000. Okay, and that's generally what they say. And there are times when magazines get more readers than that. For instance, San Diego magazine, which unfortunately recently stopped printing, they were in hotel rooms. So if you went to a hotel anywhere in San Diego, there's a copy of San Diego magazine in there. So you can imagine the amount of people that read that magazine for each copy that they put out there. Now it might be different with COVID. They're probably not doing that, or they're not saving the magazines, they're putting new ones in. But previously, one magazine might be in a room for 3 months. And so the number of people that would be in that hotel room for 3 months would make their demographic a lot higher as far as what their circulation is, how many people and what type of people are reading it, because you would be getting people coming from out of town as well. Okay, and distribution is, where is the magazine found? So, for instance, we do Starbucks and we do restaurants and we do hotels. Find out where the magazines are going to be, not only for your own knowledge so that you can tell people where to go pick up a copy of what you've written, but also to know what type of people are reading the publication. So those things are important. Remember when you're writing for a magazine, doing some sort of research along the way is always a good thing, because it makes for your chances to be greater that they're going to publish your articles. Okay. Preferred font when submitting an article. This seems like a weird question because they're going to print it in whatever font the magazine uses. It's not going to necessarily be what you send it in. But the reason I suggest this is that when I tell my writers who are in my magazine writing classes to send in articles and how to do it, the first thing I tell them that is in the subject line, okay, put submission, okay, the name of your article and how many words it is. Okay, the reason for that is that a lot of times when it comes down to publication time, an editor will go through the magazine and go, wow, I have, a quarter of a page or a half of a page empty. What can I put in it? They'll go back to their submissions and they'll look and see, if they have a 125 word article or a 250 word article, to try and figure out what they can fit in a certain area. Okay, so when it comes to fonts, when you give the word count or they're looking at it visually, there's 3 fonts that are the same size for the purposes of publication. And that's Times New Roman, Courier, and Arial. Okay, so those 3. And if you use those 3 types, when they look at your submission, they'll know exactly how much space it's going to take in the magazine. So that could help you get your article published as well. Okay. This is one that really upsets people when I tell them about this. Can the editor change your article? Okay, once they've purchased your article or they've agreed to print your article, they can do whatever they want with it. Okay, now you ask, what if I don't like what they did to it? Well, if you've been paid for it, it's their property, so they can do what they want with it. But if there's been enough significant change to it that makes you not want to have your name associated with it, you can simply tell them to take the byline off, take your name off of the article. They still have to pay you, okay? But you don't have to have your name associated with an article that may have content that you don't believe in. For instance, if it's a political article and you're writing it from a Democratic point of view, and by the time it appears in the magazine, it's a Republican point of view, you might not want your name associated with that. So you might say, okay, just take my name off of it. So you can't stop them from printing it, but you can make them take your name off of it if they change too much of the article where you're not happy with it anymore. Okay, questions on that? Okay. What if I don't like the changes? We just covered that. Okay, so you just have your name taken off. Another one thing that's important that I didn't know when I started out writing was you're not guaranteed a byline. If somebody buys your article and you have your name associated with it, they don't have to put your name on it. Now, this is something that I would strongly suggest that you find out when someone says they want to purchase your article, is find out if you're given a byline. Because before we were talking about the fact that sometimes you're not paid a lot for it, or sometimes it's payment and contributor copies. If you don't have the byline, then it's not worth writing for them. If you're not getting paid a decent amount and your name's not on the article, move on to another publication. Okay, because the byline is what's going to give you the opportunity to get other writing jobs, because it's going to be in your portfolio with your name on it. So you want to make sure that you are getting a byline. Okay. In our publication, we do a lot of interviews. If you've read through it, it's interviews of different women and what they've accomplished. So a lot of people say to me, do you have to get permission to print it? For the most part, if someone's giving you an interview, they know it's going to be printed, so you're covered. But what I like to do with my publication is that I always send a copy of the article to them prior to actually printing it, for a lot of reasons. Number one, when you're writing an article, when you have an article in your publication, you want to make sure that it's accurate. And I at times have interviewed people who have, medical knowledge or, some kind of knowledge that I'm not as familiar with, and I don't want to put the wrong information down. So I send it to them. I've had instances where people have told me things that as I'm writing it down, I'm going, this is kind of personal. I'm not sure they really want it in there. And if they haven't said this is off the record, I'll include it, but I'll have them read it first so they can say to me, no, I didn't want that in there. Okay, a lot of publications don't do that. For instance, the National Enquirer. Okay, if you've ever read an article, even seen an article when you were in the grocery store from the National Enquirer, you know they're not getting permission, especially when it's those bathing suit pictures that they put in and people, stars looking horrendous in bathing suits. You know that that's not something that somebody would have said, okay, it's great, publish it. So, there are magazines that do that, and legally they can do that, but they need to have an awful lot of insurance because they're going to get sued. So whenever it comes to writing articles, make sure that you've got the permission of the person. And you can do this simply by sending them an email and saying, here's the article, please review it if it needs any changes. If not, just get back to me and let me know that I have your okay to print it. Okay, so that's something to consider doing when you're doing an interview type of article. Okay, and can I submit an article to several publications at the same time? Okay, for years we couldn't. For years, writers were locked into the fact that you would write an article, you'd send it to a magazine, then you'd have to wait 3 to 6 months to get an answer, and if they turned it down, then you could send it to your next one. And what happened was people started saying, wait a minute, I can't make a living like this. I can't wait 3 months for an answer. So the National Writers Union decided that it was fair for writers to be able to send the same article out to numerous people, numerous publications. The only thing that's required is that if you do that, you need to send a letter to those that, if it gets published by someone, say one of the 20 people you send it out to, they say, yes, we want to print it. You need to get in touch with the other 19 to let them know that it's no longer available. So as long as you do that, you're within your rights as a writer to send it out to as many publications as you want. And that's why the submission tracker that I talked about earlier not only lets you find magazines that are interested in, that you would be interested in submitting to, but they also keep records of who you've sent everything to. Because I don't know, my memory's not that good. I don't know how everyone else's, but I wouldn't remember all 20 magazines that I sent it out to. So that's why the submission tracker does that for you. And I have a free one that I just found that's in the list we're going to go over in a few minutes, and you can sign on, and you just have to register with them, and it doesn't cost any money to be part of it. Okay, so that's basically the things that you should know, the 20 top things that every magazine writer needs to know. And I will send you this, but it won't be this copy, it'll be the one with the answers. Okay, so you have both things down so you know what's going on there. Okay.
Question, Judy.
Yes.
If you get an article and it's published by a magazine, and later you're doing a book or something, a compilation of several things that you've written, are you allowed to use that previously published article? Or
Yeah,
if so,
you can,
how?
because what happens with magazines is when you submit an article to a magazine, for instance, like with us, we're bi-monthly, okay? So we're on the newsstands for 2 months. So we own the rights to your article for 2 months. After that, it reverts back to you. Okay, so you only, it just couldn't go within those 2 months. You know, as long as you put it in that book after that 2-month frame, it's back to being your property again. Okay, magazines
Gotcha.
only take like a one-time right, but usually one-time North American serial rights is what they take, and that means it appears once. You know, if they want it again, they have to buy more extensive rights from you, which most magazines won't do because they only want to use it for that issue. So yeah, you're fine to use it. The other thing too, which you brought up a point here, is say I have an article that I write and I want to send it to more than one magazine, even though it's been published. You can do that as well. There are a lot of magazines out there that will take second serial rights, which means previously published articles. So you can even have a market with the same article and have it go to several different publications. Most of the time they don't want it simultaneously. So in other words, if you printed it in, in a magazine in San Diego and a magazine in, say, Massachusetts, they don't want it running the same month, but they'll be okay with you running it in those articles, in those magazines, because they'll figure, what's the likelihood that someone who lives in San Diego is going to see a local Massachusetts publication? So they're usually okay with that. The other thing is when we're talking about knowing what your demographics are, sometimes you can change an article from an article that maybe is for seniors by just modifying some things in it to make it for, people who are younger, or the reverse. Say you're writing an article about picking out the perfect prom dress, okay? And you can put that in a teen magazine, but then maybe grandmas and grandpas might be willing to buy their grandchildren the prom dress, so you might want to just modify it and change it to the perfect dress to buy for your granddaughter. So you can always use it. I have one article that I've had published 9 times just by changing parts of it. So consider that. I mean, you can make a lot of money on one article if you're flexible enough to be able to make changes depending on where it's being published. So keep that in mind. We'll give you some extra income. Okay, any other questions? How you doing, Kira? You hanging in there? She's on mute. Okay, so sure I'm not losing anyone along the way.
Yeah, sorry, I'm here.
Yeah.
It was such good information.
No problem. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't rushing too much. And like I said, you're going to get all of these handouts once the class is over. I email you everything, so you'll have that to refer back to. Okay.
Thank you.
The thing I was talking about, which is the listing of places to submit your work. I want to get that to you guys. Okay, we seeing that? How to make money from your home computer? Okay. Now, those of you who are in my Wednesday class, so Lisa and your father, I printed out this before, but since I did that, I updated it. So there are 3 new things on the top portion for you to look at, which is Upwork, Writers Access, and Medium. And those are 3 sites that I came across kind of accidentally. The National Writers Union, of which I'm a member, put out a survey that they did, surveying freelance writers to find out where they're getting most of their work. And these were the top 3 sites that they mentioned. So I went in and took a look at them, and there is money to be made for writing for these different sites. The first one, Upwork, seems to be one of the most popular, and that's a site for getting freelance work from writers. Okay, you can work long-term with them or just do job assignments. You have to go on the site and register, and below is the fee structure. So the way they work is they don't charge you a fee to be on their site, but when you write and you sell something, that's the fee structure. So they're going to take 20% for the first $500 that you bill to a client. Okay, now if you're working with the same client, that client, then as you get more sales with that client, it goes down. So then it's 10% if you build more than $500.01, and then it's 5% if you build more than $10,000 with the client. So they do it on a structure based on how much work you've actually done for a particular client. Okay, so that's how they pay.
You'll send us this?
I'm sorry?
You will send us this?
Yeah, you're going to get this list as well. And everything, it's a Word document, but if you control and click, you can get through to the sites from the document.
Sure, great, thank you.
All righty. And what I did give you was, on most of them, I gave you the spots to get exactly to where you have to register or where you can find out the information about.
Right.
Okay, Writer Access, It's the #1 fastest growing platform for businesses and agencies to connect with content creators, which is what freelance writers are. We create content. This won't only be for magazines. This will be for other things as well. Like if you're interested in writing for websites, there's a lot of work in website writing, even if it's not a magazine. But all the big companies out there, they don't really have the time to do the writing, so they outsource it to freelancers. So this is a good site for that. You just go onto that link which says careers, and that'll take you to where you can put in your application. They are a little more picky than the others that I've seen, where they say they take 2 weeks to review your application to get back to you. Most of the others, if you sign up, you can start writing immediately. But they do a 2-week review of your application and then get back to you and let you know if you're accepted. Okay, now Medium, anyone can write on Medium, whether you've never written before or ready to create a full publication. They let you write kind of freestyle. You just go in and you write something that you're interested in. And the way that these kind of sites generally work is that you're getting paid by click. So the more people that click on your article and read it, the more money you make. So for instance, if some of them will give you like 10 cents a click, 20 cents a click, a quarter a click, depends on what they are. But my suggestion on any of these that are click for pay sites, that you let everyone you know that you've written an article, because the more people you get to click on it, the more money you make, even if they don't read the article. Okay, they don't know that they're not reading the article. All they know is that they've clicked through it. And every time someone clicks through the article, you're getting paid. Okay, and the thing to remember if you're going to be doing writing online is the first thing that you need to have is a PayPal account. Okay, because most of these companies, these online writing sites and magazines, they pay through PayPal. And most of them pay weekly. So it's not bad. You can build up money coming in from different sources and it'll get paid into PayPal weekly. And then PayPal will also allow you to get like a debit card. It used to be you had to wait forever to get paid through PayPal, but now PayPal has the option where you can get a debit card and the money goes directly onto your debit card, and so you can use it like any cash card in the store. So it's not bad. Hub Pages is articles, and they work primarily through Google AdSense. What they do is if they get enough click-throughs, if enough people are looking and reading your article, they put ads on your page, so that things that are sold from your ad pages, you get money from that. So in other words, if somebody buys an item that's advertised on your article, you would get a portion of that. So that's how their payments come out. Fiverr, which has been around for a long time, and it used to be that everything had a fixed price of $5 and you got to keep 4. But if you've been on Fiverr lately, you'll see that there are people on there selling things for $150, $200. It's no longer just $5, but that was the premise when it started. And they take a percentage of it. I think they take 10% of whatever you sell. So, but if you have a booklet, maybe a small publication that you've written, or just an article that has interest, like a how-to article, those kind of things you can sell on Fiverr, put up a bunch of them, and people, as they buy them, you get paid through Fiverr. Constant Content is a website that allows writers to get their content sold to multiple clients. Okay, so there's also a public request system where writers can submit fresh articles to buyers who are looking for content on a specific subject. Okay, and as you write, you can join the writers pool to claim exclusive projects from clients. Okay, there's a way to build your portfolio. Each article price is determined and paid by the client. Constant Content will take 35%, while the writer receives 65% through PayPal. Okay, Wisly lets you earn money a couple of different ways. You can receive a commission for writing articles and also to the products. If you promote products, they will give you a link and it becomes your link. It's called an affiliate link. So if you write an article and you mention a certain product and then people click on it and buy it, you get a percentage of the purchase. So that's how a lot of these sites work. Okay, freelancer.com is not just writing jobs, it's everything, but I did give you a link just for the writer category. So you can go in and do that. This is probably the biggest freelance site that there is. Matter of fact, our magazine's creative director left a few years ago. Oh God, more than a few now, maybe 8 years ago. And I had to get a new freelancer to do my layout and design of the magazine. And all people do with that is they'll post an opportunity, a job, and then people will submit their application for it. So you'll see jobs up there for writers. You go in, if it's something you think you want to write, you submit an application to them, and then they decide the person who has the job is going to pick who they want. So it's a job site, but there are postings for the type of writing jobs there, and you can decide what you want to write. Craigslist San Diego doesn't seem like a likely place to get writing jobs, but believe it or not, it is. And if you do the query, this is particularly for San Diego. You don't have to go to the San Diego one because most of the writing is going to be by computer. You know, it's going to be in digital. You're not going to be having to meet anybody or do anything. So you can check out the San Diego Craigslist, but then when you're done with that, you can go in and put in Sacramento, New York, Pennsylvania, whatever you want to put, and see what their writing jobs are. And as long as they say they're telecommute jobs or that they're online jobs, and you know you can do them from wherever you are and make some money with them. And they generally have a listing for what they're going to pay. And you know, you can apply for the job, and that's the payment that you're going to get up front is what they tell you that they're paying. The next two sites are more informational sites for you on how to do things. I know over the classes that I've had, a lot of people have been interested in blogging, and people have made a career out of blogging. And primarily the people who make money through blogging online do it because they are putting in items to buy. It gets back to the affiliate marketing again, where you can have items in your blog and then people click on it and you get paid for the purchases. So that'll teach you all about that. Content Row is a site that's not a sales site, but I thought it was interesting, so I threw it in here. And what they do is if you are trying to write a headline for an article that you've written and you can't figure out which one's better, you can put the headline into their headline search and it'll tell you how valuable that headline is. It'll rate the headline on whether they think it's a good headline or not. So if you're kind of going between 2 or 3 different headlines for an article, you can just go to their site, put it in, and they can tell you which one they think is better, or more likely to be read. Okay. Freelance Writing Guidelines is a place where you can go to get guidelines, and they have, like I mentioned, 775 guidelines in their database. So it's a decent amount, and it's divided by your interests. So if it's a woman's topic, if it's a children's topic, if it's a health topic, you go into those areas and it'll give you all of the magazines that are available to write for. It'll give you the guidelines for them. And then the last one is the one that I mentioned at the beginning of the class, which is Writer's Database. And it's pretty good. I went on, I spent some time on it. It's free to register. Doesn't cost you anything to be a member of it. And you can go in there and decide, you know, what you want, where you want to send your work to. And then it will also take note of where you've sent everything so you can keep in control of it. So you know where it is. If somebody does buy your article that you've sent out to 10 people, you'll know who the other 9 people are. So these are some sites that I think will be good for you guys to have. And real quick, I'm going to get to the last item because we only have 5 minutes. Homework. Okay, your homework for next week. Okay. Find what I did with it. Okay. Just give me 1 second. For some reason, it's not up here. I'm sorry if you guys thought I listed it. I'm doing too many things at once. You guys just hang in with me for 1 minute. Let me get out of this and go back in, and it should be available. Are you seeing that writing? Are you seeing anything on the screen right now?
How to make money from your home computer.
Okay, still seeing that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Stop that share. Okay, here we go. Okay, now this is probably, we should have more time for this. I'm going to try and speed through it, but just so you know what we're doing. This is your homework. It's to write a review of 200 words or more. Okay, and it can be on anything: a movie show, a resort, a spa, a concert, TV series, product, restaurant, or any business or service. There's a typo there, I'm sorry about that. Okay, be sure to include in your review the pricing, where you can obtain the product or where the restaurant, resort, or spa is located, and your opinion of the place or things included, including specific as it pertains to your personal experience, and both favorable and unfavorable elements. Okay, we'll talk more next week about a review because I don't want to keep you guys too long. Basically, what happens with a review is if you let the people know that you're coming in to do a review, chances are you're going to get the best possible service. Okay, so when you're writing the review and you write out that this restaurant was perfect, they did everything right, and the food was delicious and all that, take into account that if they know you're in there to review, you're going to get the best treatment possible because they want a good review. Okay, So what you have to do is look around at the other people, the other restaurant, people eating in the restaurant, and see if they seem to be enjoying the food. You can even ask them, how was your meal? How did you enjoy it? Or just keep note of how fast it takes them to get their orders, because you don't want to write a review that's totally positive and have somebody spend their hard-earned money to go to a restaurant that may not be so good, because what ends up happening, besides it not being really ethical to do that, is that they're going to be upset that they listened to what you said, and they may never take anything you say seriously in another review. So even though we hate to put negativity in a review, sometimes it's necessary. Or if the review is so negative, it might not even be worth writing the review on it. Okay, but don't sugarcoat a review. It should be honest. Years ago, I did a review we did a staycation feature, and there was a great hotel. I don't know if any of you have been to it, Paradise Point, over in Mission Bay. It was a great hotel. I mean, the place is beautiful. But they knew I was coming to do a review, okay? And they were supposed to check me in at 2. They didn't check me in until 6, okay? And so that was, although the rest of the place was good, I felt I had to mention that. Because you don't want people going, especially if they've got a couple of kids in tow, they're going to go to a hotel, and instead of being able to get in at 2 o'clock, they have to stand around and wait until 6 o'clock to get a room. Okay, so you need to be honest, but still tell the story as well as you can. The reason I say include pricing is because people want to know before they go to the place if they can afford it. If you felt that you got a good return on your investment, then that, we're getting Kira dropped out, we're getting her back, okay. Okay, so the review has to be honest, okay? Because if it's not honest, then you're not going to be believed, okay? Hi, Kira, you're back.
Yes, I'm so sorry. My phone died. I'm a mess today.
No problem, no problem. I'm just going over the homework, which is writing a review. One of the easiest ways to get into a magazine is through a review, because magazines are always looking for reviews. So it's a good thing to start at for people who want to write for magazines, is to do a review on anything. And even something as simple as a light bulb. One time, one of the students in my class wrote a review on a light bulb, and I went, okay, how could I possibly use this? But it turned out it was an important review, because I don't know if you guys are familiar with those squiggly looking light bulbs. They're kind of rounded. They're not like a regular bulb. Yeah. It turns out if one of those bulbs falls and crashes, it emits a poisonous scent, poisonous in the air, poison in the air. And people were getting sick from it, and nobody knew this. And I said, well, if I don't know this, I'm sure other people that read my magazine don't know this. So I published a review on a light bulb. So it can be anything, like I say, a movie, a resort, a spa, a series on Netflix maybe, because I know we're all kind of stuck at home now. So, something that you're watching, that you're binge watching, maybe you want to write about, anything at all, product, service, whatever. So it's going to be like 200 words or more. And we'll talk more about it next class. At the beginning of the class, we'll each read the reviews. The only thing I can suggest, and I'll tell you this, and this isn't for this assignment, but if you decide you're going to write a review and it turns out to be a negative review, before you submit it to a publication, make sure it's not one of their advertisers. Okay, because I hate to say this, but that magazine's going to be more concerned with the advertiser than they are with writing the review. So, if you write it, if you notice that they have a great big ad on the back page of their magazine for a certain restaurant, and then you decide to write a negative review, I can guarantee they're not going to print it, okay? Because that's a lot of revenue that's going to go out the door. Now, you don't need to know that for our assignment, but just for general knowledge going forward. Okay, any questions on the homework? Okay. All right, so I will see you guys next week. Sharon, you're going to be taking the Monday, and Kira, you're going to be switching to Monday for next week?
Yes, I'll see you on Monday.
Okay, all right, because I'm also offering this Monday night. So next week, we've got 3 people that didn't show up this time for this class. So they'll be here next week, and then we're going to lose Sharon and Kira to the Monday night class. But thanks for taking the time to come to the class. I'm glad you were able to, so you didn't miss the first week. And
thank you so much.
Always open for any questions. So when I send you the email with all the materials that we went over today, if you have any questions on it, just feel free to email me or give me a call, and I'll help you through whatever you don't understand. So thank you all for joining, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye.
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 See you soon.